So we never really talked about
let's talk
how
about
the
it.
unions are sexualizing the kids. So teachers don't realize this. Like, I talk to teachers all the time. I took it on the chin for them. Okay, it wasn't easy to serve as lead plaintiff, going up to the U.S. Supreme Court, having my face, in interviews, TV interviews, or writing op-eds or whatever, having nasty people say nasty things about me that were lies. That wasn't easy, but it was worth it. Well worth it. Nobody has to pay those wicked people anymore. But I took it on the chin for these people, and millions and millions of them refuse to leave the unions. Some of them don't know, because the unions lie so much, they just don't know they've been freed. Okay, they don't know. We need to help them know. Some of them know, and they're too afraid to leave the unions. Because paying your union dues, it's like hush money, right? The mafia is not going to come after you if you pay. Okay, so they're afraid. But they need to get some courage. They need to grow a backbone. And then other ones don't leave because, I can't let go of my disability insurance that I could only buy through the union, or my liability insurance. Well, we can cover you. We have organizations that cover the liability. They can buy for cheap, for way cheaper than union dues. The disability is another thing. They got to find it on their own. But so many teachers stay in for that. Christian teachers who know better, who don't want kids sexualized, who don't want our schools to be dangerous, but they keep paying the satanic agenda because, it's some safety for me. Mm-hmm. And it breaks my heart because, number one, they're going to have to answer to God for it someday. But number two, Benjamin Franklin, we have to listen to our founders. They were great, godly men, God-fearing men, even though the left wants us to think they didn't believe in God. That's a lie. They were God-fearing men.
Slave owners.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. We get into that. Oh, my goodness. There's so much more depth into what was really going on, right? So, but Benjamin Franklin said, and I'm not going to quote it perfectly, but it was something like, if you give up liberty for a little security, you deserve neither liberty nor security. And that's the problem. People are giving up so much liberty to be secure with some insurance or whatever. And it's devastating because people who continue paying the so-called teacher unions and the other government unions that are involved in the destruction of children, chopping off their breasts, okay, literal destruction, telling little boys to chop off their private parts, okay, destroying them, then saying, we do it because otherwise they'll commit suicide. No, they commit suicide because you're doing it to them. That's what's causing the suicide, is your lies and your manipulation and your destruction of these kids. So if you're a teacher and you're still funding that, you're complicit in all of that evil. All of it, because you're paying for it. So if you can't find the courage to leave, ask God for the courage. That's what God gives. In the book of Revelation, there's a list of the people that God says won't make it into heaven. Cowards at the top of the list. The cowards, top of the list. Why? Because if we're cowards, innocent ones get hurt.
And they're going to get this mark of the beast. So
Exactly.
you being a member of that, that's the mark of the beast. You're part of it.
Coward, being a coward. What a horrible mark to wear, right? So we have to stop being cowards. We have to stop being worried about security. Look, we as Americans have been spoiled, okay? What is that saying? Easy times make weak men, hard times make strong men. We need to get strong again. Okay, I think God's allowed some of these hard times, so we'll stop being so doggone entitled and weak and, laying around and we need to fight. We need to fight. So it'd be so easy for teachers and other government employees, so easy. Just stop giving the devil your money. Stop. You're a Jew? Stop giving Satan your money. I had a Jew teach me that they don't say demons or devil, they say Satan. Okay, same to me, it's all the same thing. Stop giving Satan your money for his agenda. So look, I already took it on the chin for you. The U.S. Supreme Court overturned that 1977 decision, and you no longer are forced to fund a government union. How about the DMV? Did you know that the DMV, that's where you register to vote? And we have all these 20 million, whatever the number is now, we have no idea the number of illegals that have just poured into our country. Look, it's not racist to say we don't want illegals. Why? We don't know if they fit in with our culture. What did our founders made sure that when people were going to come through Ellis Island and become American citizens, come work, get a visa, whatever the process was in those days, they had to promise that they would assimilate with our culture. They couldn't come in being, rapists and murderers and hating God and hating truth and hating a good education. They couldn't do that because we didn't want to be destroyed. A border means you're sovereign. That's all it means. And we were a sovereign nation. We're not sovereign anymore. We have people just pouring in and crazy at the same time, deporting really great people who would make wonderful citizens. I can't figure that out. I personally know great people who were deported and couldn't get a permanent status, and they were ideal citizens, while illegals pour over the border. It's insane. So, but it's happening because too many people are putting security ahead of doing what's right. Do you see, people, whoever's listening, if you're doing that, do you see that we're getting the opposite of security? Because you won't stand up and stop funding these wicked unions and stop funding this wicked agenda and stop, funding it so you can have your insurance, your disability insurance or whatever, you are the reason that we're no longer secure because you're funding that wicked agenda. So if we could just get every government employee who cares, who's a true lover of America, lover of freedom, lover of their own children, wants their children to have a good education, whatever. I would think that's most Americans. If we could just get them to stop funding unions. There's millions and millions of people funding government unions. We could turn things around overnight.
So yesterday we had the conversation with my wife, and I was telling her, who are you, that we're getting to have a podcast. And she was like, ask her whether the agenda is all over the schools. Is the agenda in all schools, in all public schools? Is it mandatory to have an agenda? For instance, I've seen those books, perverted books with when boys are getting taught how to do a blowjob to another boy.
Yep.
It's like,
yep.
Is it mandatory, or is it up to a school or to a district?
Yeah, I'm really glad your wife asked this question. The answer is complex because, of course, that wicked agenda is confusing and chaotic and complex. Mm-hmm. So let's just start with the state of California, since that's where we are. But I want people to understand, if they're listening from other states, you're not safe. There are schools in Texas where I help people and work with them because their kids are being sexualized in schools in Texas. Okay, so you're not safe if you're in Texas. You're not safe if you're in Alabama or Florida. Mm-hmm. I know teachers in Florida who have left that state because they couldn't take it anymore, especially school counselors who were being told they had to lie to parents and transgender kids and tell kids that, in Florida, okay, we all think we're going to escape to Florida. It's happening there too. So let's just focus on California first. So the so-called teacher unions, by the way, I have relabeled them the education cartel. That's what they really are, because when they call themselves teacher unions, they're taking the once trusted profession of teacher and using it. It's propaganda. And so that's how they've gotten away with so much evil, because, we're teachers, just like the PTA. We're parents. No, you're not. No, you're not. You might have some parents convinced and you're exploiting them, but you're not. So they're the education cartel in my mind, and I hope people will join me in that name, because we need to call a spade, right? So the education cartel, in multiple states, has passed as laws the requirement to teach this sexualized education. In fact, they're pushing this all over the world. Mm-hmm. It's coming through the United Nations. So the United Nations is not what it claims to be. They are pushing this wicked sexualized agenda through the United Nations. So I have personal friends who volunteer, part of a ministry, and they lobby at the United Nations to try to protect children and families from sexualized curricula. They have testified that in the United Nations, these small countries will come for aid. They'll come say, we need fresh water. We need education for our kids.
Then do that.
Yep. So the agenda at the United Nations, wicked United Nations, this is their wicked agenda to these precious children and their families, poor people. Okay, you so-called teacher unions, you say you're for the poor. No, you're not. You're destroying the poor, and you're making them poorer. We have to say the truth. So, the United Nations, when these countries come for clean water, medical aid, whatever it is they need, the United Nations says, if you will take comprehensive sexuality education, that's what it's called, CSE, comprehensive sexuality education. If you will take this, then we will give you all those things you need. So these countries not knowing it's something bad, because the way CSE is sold, it's just helping kids not to catch AIDS. Why would kids be sleeping around anyway? Shouldn't you be teaching them not to sleep around? Huh?
Teach the Bible.
Exactly.
For them not to be promiscuous.
Exactly, which is what our founders did. But these people lie and say we can't have the Bible in our schools. Yes, we can absolutely have the Bibles in our schools, and we should. If we want to save this nation, we better. So anyway, these people totally no idea what's going to happen to them. They go back to their countries with this aid. Comprehensive sexuality education is destroying their children. And they come back to the United Nations. Some of them have gotten smart. Some of these small countries, they've banded together, and they come back together and say, we don't want this anymore. And they're having a hard time getting rid of it. It's destroying them. So that's what's happening here in California, in our nation, in the United States. So the education cartel, in bed with the United Nations, in bed with the World Health Organization, and they're bringing this evil into our schools intentionally. In the state of California, the so-called teacher unions, the education cartel, helped write the bill that's called the, quote, California Healthy Youth Act. Sounds nice, doesn't it? Sounds like you're going to be feeding them good food, teaching them, to eat a proper diet and, not to eat candy all day long.
Go outside.
Yeah, go outside and play. Okay, no. What is the California Healthy Youth Act? It's the, quote, act, healthy act that was brought into our state so that these wicked people can sexualize our children. Now, the woman who, you know how an assembly person, if it's an assembly bill, someone has to carry the bill. So the person who carried it was, gosh, I just lost her name. She is our current Secretary of State. That's what's scary. Okay, this woman started at the lower levels, school board, city council, and the unions have pushed her all the way up. When she brought the California Healthy Youth Act, the total sexualization of our kids, and it passed. First of all, she got awards from all these wicked organizations, but then she was promoted. We didn't vote her into Secretary of State. She was promoted there, okay? You wonder why we have election fraud issues in California? Yeah, we have election fraud issues in California. I'm a fourth-generation Californian. I remember when I turned 18, the first time I voted, I walked into my neighbor's garage. I found my address and my name on a sheet. I had to show my driver's license. I signed my name. I went in and voted on paper. They took my paper. That was voting.
So racist.
Yeah, so racist. Who did we end up getting with that system? Ronald Reagan as our governor. Pete Wilson as our governor. Good people. Now we have these crazy lunatics running our state who do not represent us at all, because now we go and you don't have to show an ID. I show mine every time, and they say, I don't need that. I say, you better look at my ID. But who cares? Hardly anybody else is doing it, right? And I go vote on this machine, and I have no idea if my vote counts. It goes through a scanner. It doesn't show me. It doesn't give me a receipt of how I voted. It just says a smiley face. You voted.
Trust me.
Yeah, trust me. And I don't. I don't trust. So this is what, Shirley Nash Weber, that's her name, Shirley Nash Weber. She's our current Secretary of State. She brought this wicked sexualization to our kids. So what happened? I've read this bill multiple times. It's a law now. I've read it carefully. What this law did was it required comprehensive sexuality education in any school funded by taxpayer dollars. Okay? Again, a reason you don't want school choice funding private schools and homeschools. So every school has to teach it if it's funded by the government or taxpayers. Government has zero money. It's our money, taxpayer money. Okay. What do they have to teach? Well, comprehensive sexuality education. What does that mean? Well, you have to look at their curricula. So they approved 6 different curricula at the time. I don't know how many there are now. I've read them. I'll just share one. It was written by Planned Parenthood. It's called. You
can stop right here.
Yeah, stop right there. It's called Making Proud Choices. Okay, what's comprehensive sexuality education? It's sexualizing your children. The first lesson I ever saw, this was sent to me by a mother in 2012. She sent me an email. I'll never forget. The title of the email was The Latest Horror. Horror, horror, the latest horror. Her daughter was in 5th grade. No parent letter. No, the mother found the parent letter. The parent letter is always buried with a bunch. This is a mom that read everything, right? They make it so hard for parents to opt out of this stuff. It should be an opt-in. No, it shouldn't be in our schools at all. This daughter, in her class, they were exposed to something called the condom relay races. Condom relay races. Totally described in this curricula. I've read it multiple times. I wrote about it. I have 3 chapters in my book about the sex education. What's the condom relay races? They tell teachers, no real teacher would do this, but the unions have placed a lot of activists into our schools that pretend to be teachers. They'll do it every day. So they tell teachers, you need to gather the children, boys and girls together, because you're not allowed to assume anybody's gender anymore. So the boys and girls have to be mixed together. And you're going to put out a table. On the table, you're going to place 2 anatomically correct, fully erect adult male penis models. Try that on. I mean, just think about that for a minute.
5th grade.
5th grade. And by the way, this can happen.
11 years old.
Yeah, 10, 11. Yeah. And by the way, any activist teacher could do this at any age. Okay. Comprehensive sexuality education is required once in middle school, once in high school. Now, if a teacher finds a way to get around all this crazy stuff, they're obviously a good teacher's not going to teach the condom relay races. But, and by the way, the kids, they do a relay race now. What do? 2 teams, they have to put the condom on the dildo, and they have to tell all the steps. If they don't get the steps right, they have to repeat it. This is to break down the natural boundaries that God put in children to protect them from predators. That's what this is. This is predatorial. These are groomers. So these kids now, being sexualized in 5th grade, 6th grade, whatever grade they end up with this, and the first team that wins, is the winner. And literally I read this myself. Literally the curriculum says, make it a fun game. Make it a fun game. Has that ever fun? If I had to do that in 5th grade, I never would have gotten married. That's their goal. They want everybody to be lesbian, transgender, whatever. They don't want families to grow.
Or promiscuous.
Totally. Why? Because our founders said the only way to keep a free republic, well-educated, moral, self-governed. They want them to be immoral. Exactly. This is not freedom and a new way to think. It's immoral, and we have to call it what it is. Okay, so these kind of lessons that are all over, I could tell you example after example. If people want to read about it, like I said, I have 3
Give me
chapters.
one more example, so if people would...
Let's see, one more example. Gosh, my brain just went blank. Okay, there's and I literally, I have a teacher in my book who literally describes this. We also made a little movie. My book's called Standing Up to Goliath. Our movie was Whose Children Are They? And she actually shares this in the movie too. I think she shares it in the movie. Definitely in the book. Anyway, this teacher was told, this is a teacher in South Orange County, California. Okay, super conservative. Yeah. Okay, and she's told, suddenly they're all having she's a health teacher, middle school. Suddenly they're all told they have to have this mandatory training. And, nobody even knows this has been passed in the district. I mean, if you read my book, you discover that how they snuck it into the district. There was never a committee on it, nothing, all breaking all the rules. And so all of a sudden she's in this training with all the other science teachers, health teachers, and they're told that the lesson they have to teach is they need to bring one child up. Okay, isolation. They use isolation a lot to terrorize people. Bring one child up. Think about a cute little girl in piggy tails, 12 years old, comes up in front of the classroom, and then all the other kids are sitting in front of her looking at her, and the teacher's supposed to hold cards over her head, little index cards with words on it. Words like masturbation, okay? And now all the kids are supposed to scream out, clues about what's that word. Oh, playing with yourself, or, whatever. So the little girl, turning red as a beet, I'm sure, is supposed to guess masturbation or blowjob.
Literally.
Blowjob. Literally. So this teacher, during this training, 10 minutes into the training, because they showed the condom relay races in the training too, she raised her hand. Where's the parent letter? Oh, well, there is none. So here's what we find out. The parent letter makes it seem like it's the kind of sex ed you and I got when we were kids. You're going to learn about how your body works and, puberty. Okay, that's what it makes it sound like. So parents think, that's fine, right? So they don't opt out of it. And they bury the letter down at the bottom of a stack, first day of school. So a lot of parents don't see it. I'm rare, I read every word. But most parents don't. They're busy. So most children are subjected to this. And by the way, my niece, Sarah, blessed Sarah, her mom, my sister-in-law, because she was aware of all this because I fight it, she went in to their school district. This was in Carlsbad, California. Really nice, conservative place. They've escaped to another state now. But and they find the same nonsense there. But she went into the district and said, I want to read your curricula, your sex ed curricula. They treated her like a pariah. They would not let her take it home. It's like 500 pages. They would not let her take it home. They would not let her go into the library and be private. They said, no, you have to sit here in the school office and read it.
That's tyranny.
It is tyranny. And this is a woman who works full time. She had to take time off of work to do this. She'd much rather read it on the weekend. So she has to sit while people are walking past her. She goes, I know they made me sit there because I'd be embarrassed. Because everything I'm reading, is making her blood pressure go up, making her turn red as a beet. They claim that they teach the kids about puberty, adoption, things we wouldn't complain about. She said, I couldn't find anything on any of that. She said, I read, scanned hundreds of pages. She said she couldn't believe the disgusting lessons, all pushing lesbianism, pushing transgenderism, pushing, free sex, literally there's a game, okay, in the one I mentioned before by Planned Parenthood, Making Proud Choices. There was a game in there called Tell It to Tanisha. Okay, and it was Tanisha had, she had a tude, right? Ugh. So you get this tude chick, Tanisha, and you're telling her stuff and asking her questions. In that game, Tell It to Tanisha, they'd have things like, well, a 10-year-old girl had sex with a boy, but she didn't like it, so now she's going to have sex with a girl. And so she goes to Tanisha and says, well, I'm worried about getting a sexually transmitted disease, blah, blah, blah. So she's asking Tanisha advice. Okay, and the advice always is don't tell your parents, or maybe they'll say, talk to your partner about it. It's insanity. It's absolute insanity. People don't understand. This is the agenda that's in our schools. Now, to answer your wife's question, is it in every school? So what these wicked, satanic people that I call the education cartel, the so-called teacher unions who exploit teachers for this wicked agenda, so they can get their hands on innocent, vulnerable kids. What they did when they wrote the law, they wrote into it, very clever, if teachers are not qualified to teach this, then bring in the experts. Now that's not quote, but that's basically the message.
Experts.
The experts. Yeah, the experts. Who's the experts? Planned Parenthood and groups like them. Parents don't know this, neither do teachers. But school districts all over this nation have contracts with Planned Parenthood because they knew real teachers, would never sexualize children. Never. Okay, that teacher I told you about who had that training, all the teachers in there were terrified. One guy goes, because they said, you have to teach this during the month of May or whatever. He said, I'm taking the whole month off. Okay, you're going to be protected, but what about the kids? Okay, no, not safety, buddy. Fight for the kids, right? So, because they knew teachers wouldn't teach this because they're exploiting teachers.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, Planned Parenthood comes in. Do you know, I personally know many teachers. This is why they have PTSD. They are asked to leave their classroom several days at a time while Planned Parenthood comes in to sexualize the kids. Right here right now we're in LA, right? I live in Orange County. In Orange County, California, I could bring a teacher to you right now who could tell you, I don't know if she'd go on camera, but who could tell you, she's a science teacher, my students are constantly sexualized by Planned Parenthood coming in and I get kicked out. She's not allowed to tell the parents. The parents didn't see the letter. The letter didn't say it was Planned Parenthood or that they were going to get sexualized, so the parents didn't know. I started to mention about my sister-in-law. She looked at the curriculum and it was so disgusting. So she searched for the parent letter and she signed it and opted my niece out. So guess what our wicked school system did to my niece? Okay, shame on the school employees that harass people, who harass children and harass parents for doing what's right. They're also propagandized. They believe the agenda, right? So she opts my niece out. My niece is sent to the library every day to just sit there and be bored, read a book or whatever. And then she's mocked all day, every day because she's the only kid in school who wasn't in that sex class. What's wrong with you? How come you weren't in there? You're a this, you're a that. Because they're teaching the kids to be bullies. They're teaching them to be sexualized. Now she's square. Something wrong with her. She's the only one that was protected from it. Why did her mom wake up to this? Not only because I was fighting against it, because her daughter came home with a worksheet one day that had words like masturbation on it. And her mom's like, what the heck is going on here? So to answer your wife's question, this is going on we don't know which districts it's happening in. It's happening in any district where there's an activist teacher leading the classroom and the union protects them. These teachers never get fired. Never. I mean, if you were out in a park and you did this to a kid, you'd be arrested. Right?
Right.
But you can do it in the classroom and the union defends you. You get away with it every time. You speak against it, they chase you out of your job. Okay? So teachers are too scared. They got to quit being scared. Look, when only one teacher speaks up, like me, or like my friend Aaron Benner, the black teacher in Minnesota, when only one speaks up, the evil wins. But if we all stand up together and say, you are not molesting our kids in our schools anymore. You are not lying to me anymore. You may not be here. Get out. You're not welcome, cartel, education cartel. You're not welcome, Planned Parenthood. We have to take back our authority.